In session, Doug, are you ready?
On the air.
Okay. We're back in session at 9:34 p.m. and discussion on Wilson property, Blackberry TIF district. This has been put on the agenda for a variety of reasons. One is the suggestion of using the Wilson property for recreation fields. Two, the apparent recommendation, I believe, from the Blackberry TIF to disband the TIF district. And three, the fact that there has been public articles and stuff about the golf course possibly being developed and how that might associate with the Blackberry TIF district has come up in my mind and others. So that's what we're going to talk about, at least somewhat tonight.
We have 5 minutes?
We'll probably, hopefully, spend about 15 minutes on this and realize we won't get through all of it, I'm sure. But I'll just start off so we can get it going, share my thoughts just to help. On the Wilson property, if we decide that the Blackberry TIF district in its current configuration is not working out and we should disband it, then I'm happy. And I actually originally supported the acquisition of the Wilson property for athletic fields, and on the Open Space Commission, that's what it was originally proposed for. And then we used the bonding revenue from the TIF district to buy it. So there's a couple questions that if the council decides they want to do that, I think there's about 4 or 5 questions that we need clarification on. One is, do we have to have, do we have to use other source of money to buy it from the Blackberry TIF to use it for non-TIF purposes? Because the TIF was not created for recreation fields. So that's the question. If the TIF district is disbanded, what happens to the assets of it? They just become regular assets of the town. Therefore, they'd become eligible for whatever use we want or sold. Those are the big ones. And then on the particular property, having been out there and seen surveys and stuff, I know there's access issues. And I'd like to have the planner's input on if we were to use it for recreation fields, how would we get access to it? We have a 25-foot right-of-way that has limited purposes, and then we have a 50-foot strip next to a stream and a house, which obviously has some inherent problems there. So those are the questions about the athletic fields there, and I think it's a good idea generally. Do we want to just talk about that idea by itself?
What, about the access?
About the athletic fields.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
versus the other questions. Councilor Quox?
In regards to the access, Pru Oil would have worked through it. They have all those plans done, so it didn't seem to be a problem for Pru Oil. And the second idea with the Conway Affordable Workforce Housing, evidently they didn't have a problem with it. So access would have worked for those other 2 entities. So I don't see why access would be that much of a problem with the athletic fields. And with the money portion, there's a new paragraph in the 162K, which is the TIF, and it's 1X-A, and it states the possession, occupation, and enjoyment of real property by the general public. And there's another section that discusses in section 162K semicolon 6 within the district, under 3A, acquire, construct, reconstruct, improve, alter, extend, operate, maintain, or promote developments aimed at improving the physical facilities, quality of life, and quality of transportation. So I don't know if under a few of those, that might quantify using the TIF money to purchase that property for quality of life or for the general public, as quoted under what public use means. There is a portion that says public use. It would be used by the public. So I mean, you know, it's a fine line. It's questions that would have to be answered. I think I looked in the planning office today, and they had they had 2 large folders. There's a lot of work already done Topos are done, land surveys, this was all done in 2002, New Hampshire Soils, Bill Doucette Surveying, and that would be a large amount of money that the rec department wouldn't have to put out to get that work done. We could probably use a lot of that. It's easily accessible and recognizable from 108 and New Road. You've got a cemetery there, so you wouldn't have people upset. You've got Great Bay, and coming up over the bridge and looking over to the right, I think it'd be great to see a bunch of kids kicking some soccer balls around. It's a nice gateway to Newmarket, and it's land that a lot of people wanted for athletic fields. It's the perfect spot for it. I can't see why we don't use that for athletic fields. And I'll let someone else speak to that, and I'll butt in later on.
Councilor Glennon, Councilor LaBranch.
During our break, I spoke with one of the current Black Bear members, and back sometime, and I don't know what the exact date was, I believe it was sometime possibly this year, maybe the latter part of last year, that the Black Bear Committee had met, and their recommendation was to dismantle the Black Bear itself because of lack of activity and no movement in that area. And I just wanted to confirm with that member, had they met since then? And they said no, they've had no regular meetings. So I'm going to go with the presumption that nothing has changed in that area. So I am at this point, because we're all looking for athletic fields, that's a great spot to put the athletic fields. I would make a motion at this point that we dissolve the Black Bear tip itself, reacquire the properties of the Wilson Farm. If we have to buy it back, throw the monies back into the Black Bear tip to acquire that property, we do that, and that we look at possibly taking some of the money from the open space, which I believe was $450,000. If that's what we need to use to buy that property back, then we so do that. Make it very short and sweet. My motion is to dissolve the Black Bear, to pull out the Wilson property, to use it for athletic fields.
I'd like to just ask you not to make a motion, because this is a discussion on the subject. It's the first time we've discussed it as a group.
Yeah, I know, but we've kind of been kicking this around for quite some time. And the reason why I'm making a motion is...
Well, let me, hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
It's not the right time to make a motion on it because it's a bit workshop. And I entertained motions on other items that have been discussed at length during this workshop. But at workshop, we don't make decisions. This is making a decision. We discuss items. We have not, as a group, this council has never discussed the Black Bear TIF, the recreation fields at the Wilson Farm, and the last report we got from the Black Bear TIF was like 4 or 5 months ago. And so I just think it's a little early to move forward with that kind of motion. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with what you're saying, but I think it's out of
But it's
order.
not unprecedented, though. I mean, it's been done before, right?
We have acted on things in a workshop,
Right.
but usually it's with the full support of everybody. It's not an issue that has not been vetted. This is a major decision that you just outlined
Right,
after
it is.
3 minutes of
And
discussion.
it was meant to get movement on this, because I just feel that the Black Bear TIP Committee months and months ago made that recommendation, and for whatever reason, it's never, and you and I have had this conversation, it's never come to the council, either from the previous chair or from this chair. That could be because of scheduling problems and everything else going on, I don't know. But I for one, feel that we need to act in the interest of our children, the athletic fields, and there's a real need there. And I just feel we're just prolonging it. And I guess I would ask the rest of the council what their thoughts are on making such a motion. I don't know, but I'm going to reserve pulling back that motion. I understand where you're coming from. I absolutely agree with you on that, but I'm just concerned that we're going to keep on pushing this further back, and we're not going to take action on it. That's my concern.
So are you keeping that on the floor?
Yeah, I am for the moment.
Is there
yeah.
a second? Okay, motion fails, lack of a second. Counselor
Well, that
Branch.
was real quick.
People would have said it right away if they wanted to make the second.
Could I just ask, what was
No.
his exact
Counselor
motion?
Branch.
Okay.
If you guys, I'm pretty nice chairman. I give flexibility. But there are rules in place about what happens at a workshop. This is way too significant a decision to be shoved
Well,
down.
it is very
It
significant.
should say.
There's no question
final
about it.
action on Black Bear TIF. Because if we're going to abolish something that's been in place for 10 years, I
And
think
doing
we-
nothing.
I think that we should have the chance for the public to have input on it and announce that we're considering that decision versus discussing it. That's why I feel pretty strongly about it. That's why, I'm glad there wasn't a second, but I want us to have the discussion, and I'm glad there's 3 members of the committee here. So Councilor Branch, and then we have other
Okay,
ones.
I'm not prepared at this point to make any judgment on keep or not keep. My biggest concerns right now, having gone through the last vote with Packers Falls, I feel obligated as a counselor to look at other options. And what I'd like to see the council do right now is to put the effort, the council and the organizations in towns, the Newmarket Youth Association, the Rec Department, all those people that were so adamant with Packers Falls when it first came to the council. I'd like to see those people get involved and put the effort into the Wilson properties to find out what we can and cannot do, what it's going to involve to get things established here. And at that point, I think we can make a better determination of what is going to happen down there. That's just my feeling. I just think we need input from other people, and see if we can't get the Black Bear TIF organization up and running again, if they want to continue or if they don't want. I mean, if you don't have a committee, what's the sense of keeping it, correct? If you can't get people to be on this committee. So, I don't know. Those are just my suggestions at this point. My main concern is looking for some open space for these kids to play and adults to play, because we don't have any place for adults to play at this point either.
Are there any specific, on that line, you opened it, and I think that's right. I mean, I laid out the questions I have about athletic fields there. I think if we can keep on that line, here are the questions I have about using that for athletic fields. So we can ask the staff to start answering them, and then at the next point when we discuss this, we can have those answers. So I added that, I know that there were field layouts done by the staff, rough field, like, dropping a baseball field and saying it could fit there, not any professional engineering. Do you have any other questions about that site that you would want answered?
No, because I don't think I know enough about it, and I need to get educated on it, and I'd like to see input from Jim Hilton on this. What's his feeling towards it? I think he's obviously a major player in this because Jim can envision something that perhaps we can't.
Yep.
So that's what I'm looking for.
All right, Councilor Quox and then Councilor Wilford Hamel.
I know Jim Hilton was extremely interested in that piece of property. He wanted that for athletic fields before it was bought. I would, on my piece of property, remember the discussion on that, the MJS, that's barely 10 acres, and they had parking for 50 cars and 2 fields. At the grant down at Packers Falls, I think it was just barely 10 acres, and they supposedly would have had enough land for, so we're talking 42 acres, I think, there. So I don't see any problem with getting adequate fields.
21,
Just 21?
21, 22 acres.
So I really don't see that much of a problem.
I guess, Rosanna, I think you're hearing from me counter arguments because you're arguing back on the points. What we did on Packers Falls was assume we could do things, and then we spent $40,000 and figured out we couldn't. And I'm saying, let's answer all these questions so we don't have false assumptions because of the size of the property or because there was a developer. Like, Prue Oil doesn't care what the public thinks about filling in the wetlands if they can get the permit. But we backed down because the public didn't like it. So we have different decision-making than a private developer would about where they're going to put an access point. That's what I mean. So we need to be aware of all those. I don't think it's quite as simple as, oh, well, there was a proposal for development there, so we can get access. We probably can, but we have a hard time making really hard decisions that affect people. Then that's not criticism, maybe, I'm just saying we do.
I would like then, I mean, I think Mr. Glennon's, Councilor Glennon's motion was to just disband Black Bear TIF.
Right.
I think maybe at our next meeting, I would like enough input and some information that even if at that meeting we do not disband Black Bear TIF, but at least agree as a council to eliminate the Wilson Farm from the Black Bear TIF, and get information on that and see where that takes us.
Okay, Councilor Pulaski? Oh, Councilor Wolfram, then Councilor Pulaski. Whoa.
Well, I agree with mostly what everyone else has said, but maybe to put an end to this, last Friday I picked up this package, said number 9, discussion. So let's see what we can do with the discussion, but I think that should be the end of it. Maybe next time around we can do something. Thank you.
Councilor Pulaski?
I think some of the things we have to look at, Councilor Quox mentioned earlier, the additional paragraphs in the regulations, that maybe it is something we can do under the TIF without disbanding it. That's one of the options we have to look at. We have to look further at the regulations and really read into them to say, okay, we don't want to disband the Black Bear TIF because we can do this under the TIF and using the TIF money. That's one of the things we definitely have to look at. That's it.
Councilor Lennon?
Just a point of clarification. When I made the recommendation as a motion to disband Black Bear, it was under the recommendation of that committee. And it didn't appear to me that there was any real excitement to pursue and keeping it going, because months had passed and that recommendation still stood. So that was the reason why I included that in my motion. Secondary to that, I agree with all of you that we should be looking at the Wilson Farm for athletic fields. And I agree with Councilor LaBranche, we need to do further studies, which then tells me if we all kind of have this, and the public's been talking about possibly using the Wilson Farm, why wasn't something done in the interim to check into that? Mr. Hilton's always been an advocate of that, for using the Wilson Farm for that. So, I mean, that was the reason why, and I'm glad I did what I did, because now I pushed it to a point where there was a dialogue.
Well,
If I offended you, I
the
apologize.
dialogue was existing before.
Well,
I mean, the key
didn't-
thing.
I just was afraid, Mr. Chairman, it wasn't going to go anywhere. you
Well,
know?
the first thing is, the Open Space Commission originally proposed acquiring this property for recreation fields. The Black Bear TIF District found out about it and said, well, wait a second,
Swallow it
we
up.
should buy that because it provides an access point close to the new road bridge, which was the area that was going to be reconfigured. So Jim Hilton was intimately involved with the decision and recommendation to acquire the Wilson Farm for recreation fields. He has not been approached for rediscussion because the council hasn't made a change of mind about the use of the property. And he's not going to waste his time, and Al's not going to waste his time asking him to come up with ideas about it before we say we want to accept those ideas. So let's just be fair and clear about it. Administrator Dixon and then Councilor Quox.
Since nobody's going to ask, I'll volunteer. Basically, it's not as simple as you can build. If we were going to develop a TIF district to build ball fields, you wouldn't have a TIF district. TIF district is to develop infrastructure to aid and abet development. That's what it is. It's an economic development tool, not a recreational. Okay? Now, if that recreational opportunity was a business and was going to expand the tax base, then you got some justification. But if it's just to develop the municipal facility, no. Also, the bonding is very specific for the TIF, and what we intended, is there's a plan for both TIFs, and you have to stick close to that plan. You have to stick to the plan. And the plan was, the $3.2 million was to acquire some properties for access and et cetera, and to build an access road and to extend utilities, et cetera, to open up that area, and a bridge. The bridge was the bulk of the money, over $2 million. So clearly, if you, to my knowledge at this point, the little I've looked into it, although there's been no experience, the land is yours. Okay, it belongs to the town. You don't have to buy it again. It's yours. So if you disband the TIF, the land is there for the town. You don't pay yourself back. It's there. So you have that land to utilize as you as you wish at this point. You bought it, it's an asset of the communities, it's paid for. But disbanding the TIF, you can do that. The TIF committee also agreed at a point that, you know, if the recreation committee in the town wanted to invest $100,000 or $200,000 in recreational fields, and knowing that they wouldn't be permanent if there was a development opportunity, and correct me if I'm wrong in the audience, and there's two members at least that would recall this, knowing that you put this investment in 5 years, there may be GE wants to build a plant, and the ball fields go, okay? Nobody had an appetite to do that on a temporary basis, to invest that kind of money. So, but clearly, my knowledge at this point in time, if you disbanded the TIF, the property is there, it's owned by the town, you can utilize it for that purpose. Jim certainly was enthusiastic about trying to use that area, or any area, for ball fields.
Thank you. Councilor Quox and Councilor Pulaski. Okay, Councilor Quox, go ahead.
Councilor LaBranch and myself have a meeting with the rec department on August 20th, and maybe at that time we can bring it before Jim, see if he has any additional information. Ask him to attend the next, what's the next meeting? The next business meeting would be
September 5th.
September 5th.
Yeah, it should probably be a workshop.
Yeah, they really should be a workshop. I mean, you're putting too much that should be a
Okay.
workshop into a
Okay,
business meeting.
workshop. And with the extensive work that they did for Prue, could we ask Tobin Farwell to take a look at those plans to see if he thinks he's used by the planning board? He's very, very good. For him to take a look at those plans, put that on to discuss at the workshop. But it would be good to have that information at that workshop, so that we can move it to the next business meeting for a decision. To have Tobin Farwell review the existing plans from Prue to see the feasibility of putting, it shouldn't be too expensive, he's very reasonable and very good. I'd like to have that information at the next workshop.
Would you be, I mean, would we get the same, I mean, what Prue's gonna do to the landscape versus what we need to do athletic fields is probably not necessarily the same, but what I was thinking is if Jim Hilton worked with Diane, and Diane said, well, here's what you need for access, road width, parking lot area, and here's what we have, and they could look at the constraints and then outline to us, here are the goods and the bads about the site.
But you also have to remember that as a municipality, we do not have to follow the ordinances, and we can tweak the numbers as much
Okay.
as we want to get in there.
I
It's something
realized
that
that,
should
I
be
just
tweaked.
remembered that during the last discussion on Falls Brook Fields, we got continuously hammered on those points by members of this council too, so, you know, but I think we have the expertise there, and we're gonna have to have, if we decide to put fields out there, we're gonna have to hire an engineer to do engineering plans. So, that's just my thought, but, okay. So there's a series of questions that, anybody have any other thoughts or comments about that recreation field part? Councilor Branch.
This is actually for Administrator Dixon. I don't know if I'm reading something wrong here or not, but are you basically saying that if we utilize that area for rec, if we determine that we're going to put fields there, that in essence Black Bear doesn't exist anymore? Is that what you're saying, or?
If we
I mean,
disregard-
one can exist without the other, correct?
Yes, or they both can coexist, on
Okay.
you know, but let's put it this way, if it's, you can't use TIF money, though, to develop the fields. That's a clear thing.
Oh.
The other aspect is, if you keep the Black Bear TIF in effect and you build the fields, which you can, what if Black Bear all of a sudden, if it's not dissolved, has a GE plant and, you know, it involves the area you built the fields on?
So what you're saying is that is the only entrance to getting into the Black Bear area? That's,
Well, it may be the only feasible entrance
Okay, that's
to
what-
most
that's what I'm-
people,
okay.
because the further you get down a new road, I think the more, for an entrance to that area, the more opposition you're going to have, and you're probably going to have a lot of opposition, as I read it right now, anywhere
Mhm.
on New Road. But I definitely feel that the further down into the heart of New Road, the more opposition you're going to have.
Plus there's wetlands.
But you can have the both. You can have the fields and you can have.
Yeah, but I think you should try to permanentize, make it permanent a little bit. If you're going to spend a couple $100,000 then and put in fields,
Well, I agree. I mean, I don't want
Should be
to, I don't
done.
want to put fields in there and then 10 years from now say, sorry, kids, but we're taking it back. No.
or 5 years from now, GE says, well, you know, God, we're going to, we want to work with you in the TIF, and we're going to provide you the funds to cash flow and develop the access, and it's right through the Wilson farm. So I think you go one way or the other.
That we're blessed with such an opportunity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really.
Such a problem.
Maybe they'll build us a field.
Where?
I think they will.
On the roof of the plant. Okay, so Al, would you be willing to work with the staff to start having these questions about access and usability of the area discussed,
Access?
and the feasibility of athletic fields and, you know, all that kind of stuff, the location, how many, blah, 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 what the necessary steps would be? Have them put that together for our next workshop?
Okay, so they'll specifically address access and the feasibility, and then the approach to approval? Approach?
Be at the workshop.
Yeah, but
This
the
is just
approach,
discussion.
This is, yeah, I'm not, what do you mean by approach for approval?
Yeah.
well,
We
I
want
thought,
them just to answer these key questions about access, how
and
many fields-
feasibility,
Right.
period, okay.
And then I would request that we do get a legal opinion from our attorneys regarding the questions about if the TIF district disbands, what happens to land bought by the TIF district that is not being utilized for the purpose? And then if it remains and the council decides to use a property within the TIF district for recreation fields, are there any ramifications or limitations on the ability to do that? I think those two questions need to be answered, so we're on solid footing, we understand it. So there seems to be consensus to do that
Yep.
too?
Yeah.
Now, the question about the Blackbird TIF and the disbanding, and there's folks here from the committee. I guess one question is if, you know, there's this idea the golf course has been put out on the market and possibly bought, and some kind of commercial retail. You know, has that changed the mind of the committee that if you expanded the TIF district to include that, you'd suddenly have a revenue source that could help with some of the access issues? Sure, all of you should have the opportunity to respond, because I know the committee hasn't really discussed that since you haven't
Mr.
met.
Chairman.
Who's currently the chair? Herb is? Herb.
Sue's vice chair.
Unless they voted me out while I wasn't there.
No, they're pointing at you with the index finger.
I'd like to go back 8 or 10 years and remind everybody that the TIF district was set up by the voters in the town. 73%, I believe, of the voters voted to create the TIF districts in this town. TIF 2, which is the one I'm concerned with, is also referred to Black Bear. Black Bear came about from Celestica when they were interested in locating here in Newmarket. They used the term Black Bear. In the beginning, we thought it was a slight against UNH from Maine, but it was the purpose of their Black Bear code was to maintain their confidentiality. They didn't want the word out what they were doing, and the name is stuck. So, talking with Black Bear, I'm sort of dismayed that somebody would say do away with it, but I have some reservations. To say that we have no meetings doesn't mean that nothing's being done. Most of our effort takes place through the town administrator. He seeks out the businesses and people and works with the state to see who might be interested in relocating to Newmarket or New Hampshire and possibly even in Newmarket. So it's not a case of nobody doing anything. It's constantly thought about. Now, over the years, our main dilemma is entrance into that property for development. We looked at the Bodett Bridge. Railroad wasn't interested. Even though in the future they'll have to replace the bridge, not interested. We looked at DOT, to see if we could have an entrance between the two bridges on 108 down there, the Newfields end. Bad, they didn't go for that. We also, Alan, talking to DOT, said, well, found out that they had talked with Newfields about building or replacing the Newfields Bridge, which is located entirely in Newfields. And Newfields was not interested at all because none of their people used the bridge. So we asked them if we could intercede on their behalf in accommodating that bridge and taking care of the cost with no cost to Newfields. And they more or less said yes. But one of the dilemmas is time. By the time things happen, everything's changed. You know, it's nothing that we have control over, or even the town has control over. It takes long enough, it changes. Just like the business cycle. About every 10 years we go through a recession. It's bound to happen. So in the long run, it looks like nothing's happening. Celestica went to Pease, which I would say is a good decision. We had another one. In fact, one of the owners was going to put his corporate headquarters on his property. A couple of councilors told him they had to build granite buildings. He said, the heck with this, and he put it in Brentwood. You know, it's one thing after another. We had a few others. Nothing was a plant, put an asphalt plant or something, and we didn't want that, so we didn't entertain that. And then there was Prue. Prue had a sense of the impact on their relationship, business relationship, or image in the town, and decided, well, we don't want to damage our reputation by putting something down there that their neighbors wouldn't want, so they looked elsewhere. So it's a constant endeavor to find somebody that might want to locate there. Maybe futile. The other aspects were, as you just mentioned earlier, that when the Hampton Shuttle property went on the market, also formerly the Wilson property, we knew that there was an entrance there and felt that it was all good land, not wetlands or anything to speak of, and would be a good addition for that end of the property to find an entrance. So we purchased it. Now, not much has happened since then. We did purchase another piece over there by the railroad, the house that burnt down, and the reason for that was, in talking with DOT, they had visions of relocating 108 on the Newfield side of the railroad track, and that piece would have been instrumental in providing an exit from 108 up through Railroad Street to 152, and then wherever anybody wanted to go, as well as coming down the other side of the railroad to go toward Durham if you so choose. But that, because of money constraints in the state, I guess, that sort of got soft-pedaled and didn't go too far. I don't know, did we get on one of the state plans to look at it? Or?
Not as yet.
So, again, time, money's gone, and we got nowhere. Now, as far as the decision to eliminate Black Bear from the Black Bear Committee, there was not a full board there at that time. And I dare say that there was a couple of special interests there that didn't want Black Bear. It would cause problems for them. So as a result, you heard eliminate Black Bear. Now, as far as the money that was expended, $600,000 on the Hampton Shuttle property, I don't think that property can be used for recreation under the current circumstances. If Black Bear is disbanded, the town would have to decide what they do. The people voted to do it. I imagine you'd put on a referendum and let them decide whether they did or didn't want to continue the thing. That's up to you folks. Now, my personal feelings are, sometime in the future, things will change. The state will do something about 108. Every day it becomes more and more of a burden, and how that will happen, I have no idea, let alone when. So It's quite possible that we're just grasping for straws with that particular piece of property. I don't know. And I don't know quite what should be done. But if you do disband Black Bear, there's another thing you gotta think of. That property was rezoned strictly for business. If you decide that that's not gonna be for business, essentially by eliminating the Black Bear group, you can't, I don't believe, in all fairness to those property owners, you can keep that property zoned commercial. Because there's no access to it, there's no way of getting it, and the town is not supporting that endeavor any longer when you eliminate Black Bear. So it should be turned back to residential as it was prior to that. That's something you should think about. Because that might have an impact on the town at that point. I don't think there's anything else I can add. But I think if this town is going to pursue broadening the tax base, we got to take a different approach. I don't know if a TIF is the answer, probably would be in the future. But some of the things that have happened are the town has no control over the land. It's owned by individuals. So you don't go anywhere. I can go back to when it was Budweiser wanted to move here. And I think one of the reasons, I won't go into why they didn't, but they didn't. And then they went to another town. That would have been one heck of a linchpin in this town had that not happened. But part of the reason it happens, I think, is because you have individuals who control the property. They may think that that property is gold. And it request or demand too much money for it, more than it's worth. People aren't going to put up with that. They'll go someplace else. Somebody else will listen to them, just as the guy did down there when he put his headquarters in Brentwood. He's not going. Businesses won't put up with that kind of stuff. They have to move and move when they want to move. They can't wait. So I think that probably a different approach is required. The town, if it wants to pursue those interests, has to be in control so they can do what needs to be done. One example is NCDC. It gets the business entity out of, let's say, the politics, so that you can do things when they need to be done within the scope of your franchise, and not wait for a year for a vote, not wait for the NIMBYs to say no, and all of that stuff. So I think a new approach, if the council is going to pursue broadening the tax base, needs to be approached. And if it means eliminating Black Bear or relocating it or whatever, I think you got a decision to make. But I also think the voters, since they voted to establish it, should have a say in it or provide some direction.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Levy or Ms. Rosa, would you like to add anything? And if at this point, if you guys can add anything new and brief would
Yep.
be.
I
know
just-
you've been patient for 3.5 hours.
Yep.
So.
Black Bear, I've been only on it for maybe 2 or 3 meetings, so
Okay.
I don't have all the background that Mr. Dalrymple has, even though I followed it through the years. The only concern I have, I voted to disband, agreed with them to disband TIF, but it wasn't to disband it completely. It was because it wasn't moving anywhere at this point, and we feel there was the NCDC downtown TIF that was going on, and all that energy is really being focused from everybody to just the downtown area and not paying attention to pursuing the Black Bear area. The only concern that I would have is that 108, whether Newmarket likes it or not, is an area for industry. It is an area where businesses would want to come to because of the location of their main street coming through Newmarket. And I do agree with Mr. Dalrymple on that. The reason I voted no for one of the businesses, it wasn't a business for workhouse housing, was because the Newmarket taxpayers voted to put Black Bear TIF in, And to me, it was to bring businesses into Newmarket and not housing. All right? Mr. Dalrymple brought up his point, which about housing. But I think the council does have a hard decision to make. I know we need fields. The only question I ask that you seriously work with the Newmarket School District and maybe directing those funds to a property to place fields. And if you do a field, that it's going, an area that is going to be large enough so you can have a recreational complex in the future and not waste money like you guys just did to Packers Falls, because the voters in Newmarket can't keep wasting money on studies. But I do think 108 will be an area where businesses want to come, and we have heard the taxpayers say they need help with the tax base. So I would hate to eliminate that area and let it come into a residential just for homes. And Brian, you brought something up that I picked up on. You said that maybe the golf course may be developed with a commercial business, and I think that would bring a new light to the members of the Black Bear TIF, knowing that could help jumpstart that whole TIF area again. That's all.
Ms. Levy, would you like to add anything?
Just a quick little
Sure.
addition to it. I know that Black Bear was voted on and developed back 10 years ago, and I think that it was the zoning that I have an issue with. I am for having commercial, industrial, broadening our tax base and so forth in Newmarket. I had a problem with the fact that some of the committee members on the Black Bear were thinking of jump-starting it with an overlay or residential or, let's do something with workforce housing or do an overlay and try to rezone part of it, which I thought was not within the TIF guidelines. I was sort of going by guidelines with the TIF, that it needed to go back before the voters if you were going to change the zoning. Also looking into the TIF guidelines, I think there was something, and I'm not sure where, I can sort of back it up with a sunset clause if something is not done or developed or done within that TIF district. There are certain time guidelines, because it just can't sit there forever. It's a tax incremental financing to help the town to make it, improve on that area and to improve the town. And it just was not going anywhere. When I was back and involved in the planning committee and wanting to on the planning board, and they said, well, why don't you get on Black Bear? I tried to go to 2 meetings where no one showed up, and it was me and somebody else waiting outside, and it was like, what's Black Bear? And there just wasn't a lot, as far as advertising or getting the word out or doing much for it. There was little hush-hush, well, we're going to have a development, or, somebody was going to come in and put a warehouse, but then someone didn't like the way it looked or something, and, and then he went elsewhere because, people in the surrounding area didn't like the way it looked. Prue Oil, people didn't like the fact that big trucks and commercial vehicles were going to be going along New Road because they could not get access onto 108, and building a bridge at that time when they did have, I guess, a plan to develop, I guess, a bridge over the railroad tracks. That was a possibility, but then when the high-speed Amtrak and so forth came through, I guess that just it wasn't going to be feasible. But my issue is just keeping the TIF within the guidelines for what it was intended for. And, Newmarket has done its fair share of, multifamily, high-density workforce housing and so forth. And to see it rezoned or jump-started in any other way, I just don't think is what the TIF was intended for. And I would like to keep it, either what it was intended for or disband it, have a sunset clause, and go forward with maybe looking at ball fields or having it used as a different usage. And that the money that we've taken in or the bonds or whatever used, in a different, different location or downtown or somewhere, and maybe it could be put somewhere else, so I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience. Councilor Quox?
Just to go back a little bit on what Mr. Dalrymple was talking about, first of all, the downtown TIF, I think, was a great idea. It was a blight in the community, the center of our town, to get that done with downtown TIF money was a great idea. I really don't feel that the Black Bear TIF is that great an area. I'm not sure about including the golf course in that. I'm not crazy over putting over $2 million for a bridge to Black Bear TIF for 200 acres. It bothers me a little bit that Mr. Dalrymple brings up special interest, wanted to disband Black Bear TIF. When he discusses Black Bear TIF, he says his a gentleman didn't want to put, believe me, if Mr. Labonte wanted to put his building up there, he would have put his building up there, believe me. And I don't believe there was any special interest, and if anything, I have issue with the special interest being mentioned when I believe there really was another special interest, when the whole Black Bear TIF situation was going on. What Mr. Herb Dalrymple didn't tell you when he goes back and talks about the gentleman didn't put his building up there is, that gentleman is Mr. Labonte, and that's Herb's brother-in-law. And I also take issue that he sat as chair and on the council and discussed Black Bear TIF, voted on it when it was totally against the charter to do so. I brought it to his attention, and it stopped after that. And I just don't know that piece, the 200 acres, is whatever it turns out to be. If Mr. Labonte wants to develop it, and the history of it in '98, nothing's been done on it, and then we end up buying the Wilson Farm. And after we buy the Wilson Farm, the Conways are in because they want to put affordable workhouse units there. And we have over 54% apartments in Newmarket, when the norm is 15%. They wanted an overlay district to do that, and the road to the workforce housing would have gone right through Wilson Farm. So I am not happy. I call that special interest. And I wasn't happy with how that whole process proceeded from the very beginning. So that's the special interest.
Some of that is not the issue at hand tonight, which is the continuation of it. But and I'm also thinking that given the hour, we should probably table further discussion and put it on to another workshop. But you've been waiting, and the town administrator's been waiting, so I'll let you speak, and then the town administrator, and then ask that we bring it to the next workshop to further discuss.
I'd just like to make 2 points. First one, as far as Mr. Dalrymple had said, where the voters voted this TIF in place. As a council, I think that we owe the voters the right to vote it out, if that's going to happen. I don't think we should be the ones making the decision. 7 people should not take away what 70% voted in favor of, or whatever the amount was.
I think to clarify that, I think the voters voted on the bonding. The council created the TIF district with the ordinance, so it's a little different. There are big differences.
Okay, well, I mean, I still think that it wouldn't be a bad idea if we put this to the voters.
Okay. Maybe
But I also want to make a statement as far as, people saying they want to see commercial and they want to see growth in town. Sitting on the planning board, last evening, a prime example. We have a Dunkin' Donuts that wants to come into town. We have flyers going around, another fast food chain in Newmarket.
I haven't seen that one.
And, so, I mean, there's discussions about other properties being available and potential buildings going in there, whatever they may be. And everybody said, we don't want that, we don't need this, we don't need that. So I think that the people in Newmarket really have to decide, do they want commercial, or do they want industry? What do they want? And not in my backyard is a prime example, but,
Exactly.
It's, we either have it or we don't, and we don't have a lot of space to put it. We have a lot of conserved land that we can't do anything with in town. We have wetlands that we can't deal with, as far as putting anything. So, the people really have to decide if they want this or if they don't want it. And I mean, that's all I can say, and I don't know if I want it. I mean, I'm not saying I don't want it, but, you know, what are the benefits and what's it gonna cost the town to grow?
You're not referring to this, you're referring to Black Bear.
Yeah, I'm just saying that that's a prime example of what happens when somebody wants to do something. When Brooks, which was probably one of the first boxes to go in on 108, there was a lot of people that didn't want that. To me, that's a blessing to have that facility there. You can get your prescriptions in town now. You don't, you know, a lot of people don't want to drive to Exeter or Dover to get their prescriptions. You know, and you got to make up your mind what you want to do, what direction you want to go in. That's it. Thanks.
Not for you, I just, you know, did you have anything to add that has not been said, Mr. Dixon?
I'd like to put my blessing on that statement, Mike, but, yes, I just have a couple of things. The sunset. There's no sunset clause, and that's been verified by legal opinion in the RSA for 162K. Basically, it's when you achieve your purpose, if you achieve your purpose. If you collect more than what you're authorized to collect, then that money has to go back into the general fund to reduce taxes. That's kind of the sunset, but it can stay in perpetuity, you know, if you want to keep it that way. I don't think that's the way you should do it. Next, the funds can't be used anywhere else other than the TIF. So you disband the TIF, the funds go back to the general fund. They can't be moved here or there or other places. The next thing I'd just like to make one last comment on is Conway proposal, good, bad, or indifferent, was an effort by the TIF committee to say, okay, if this is ever going to happen, we need to have enough money generated to pay to amortize the bond to provide the funds for the access route and the bridge and all the utilities. So out of desperation, there was a meeting with the Conway Group asking them if they could come up with a proposal, preferably a business, to open up that area and provide the cash flow. We asked them to think about it. No conspiracy, just a very straightforward discussion with them. They came back and said, look, the business climate is mush, but there is the possibility we can do this, and we've done it in other towns. Then we had the town planner look at it and everything and evaluate it and do everything. There was nothing hush-hush about it. There was no conspiracy. It was just a straightforward, desperate attempt by the committee at that point to say, if it's going to happen, this is a possibility. It should be run up the flagpole. It ran up the flagpole, and obviously it didn't go.
Yep.
But there was no conspiracy.
Thank you. Thank you for all. I'm not. I know that you probably want to respond to some comments. I'd like to conclude the discussion on this topic for now, and I have a little list of items for future meetings, and hopefully this will fit on. I got the next 6 months planned, so.
Every week.
You have different from workshop and
Yep. So that'll be hopefully on a September workshop. Thank you to the 3 members who came, and
Thank you.
thank you for the work to date. Okay, so it's 10:30. Mr. Wanowski, our future town administrator, has a proposal for a committee that I'd like us to act on. That was received by email that I got distributed to the council. That's number 12A. So my suggestion is, Mr. Pulaski is probably going to be unhappy with me, but is to skip, and you can tell the committee it was me, the Access Committee discussion, to skip the town committee reports unless there's anything urgent that needs to be told tonight
No.
versus another meeting, and then to act on the new village, the request from Mr. Wanowski.
Brian, I have one question on the
Sure.
resolution, and that will be my end of the discussion. The part in the resolution as written on the mission statement is not actually the full mission statement. Can that set as is? It's basically a summation of the mission statement.
Okay, so are you saying what's in the resolution right now?
The resolution, fourth whereas, the mission of the Newmarket Cable Access Television Committee is to manage programming and equipment replacement. That's basically a summation of the
Oh, and then you gave
full-
us the whole thing.
of the full mission statement. Is that acceptable?
That's
Or
what
should I
this
get
is.
this rewritten
Where is it?
with the full mission statement?
I think I think we want to,
This is a partial.
This is the full.
We don't have any say in that, do we?
well, we create the commission. That's the whole point of establishing the mission was to,
I thought it was individual committees that came up with that.
Hey, Brian?
yes. Is it on this matter?
What?
Is it on this matter?
Well, it's about getting things done here, coming to an end.
Okay.
I just got a question on, as I usually do, question the doing away with the minutes. Or not following the rules of, agenda proceedings.
Yeah.
I'd like an answer.
Make a motion to,
Do you want us to act on the minutes tonight? Is that what you're asking?
No, an answer why they keep getting pushed around, or,
To accommodate the fact that we had staff here for 3 hours after working a full day, and then we had volunteers here.
no, but right from the beginning, the minutes, rules of procedure is, minutes are usually about the second item down.
I'm not that particular, and I'm being very frank.
I just want to know, but,
Okay.
because it is a ordinance, resolution? Ordinance,
It's not an ordinance.
not an ordinance.
I don't think we ever adopted it
But
as
if
an
we're not,
ordinance.
if we're not gonna follow it every time, then why do we have it? This is all,
I would say we have it as
it's not a big thing.
as a guidance for so everybody knows what to expect at a workshop versus a business meeting.
But the rules are that everybody is in agreement to changing things.
And I did ask for authorization to skip that item, and we
Yeah.
did all.
Minutes?
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tonight.
I went from Julie Glover and I said, we've got Julie here, let's go to the RFP, she's number 8, and everybody said, okay.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Then we went to the Blackbird TIF because we had 3 members here.
But-
Right.
If we want to do the minutes tonight, we can. That'll be fast.
no, I wanna go home too. But
Why
the
are we
minutes
arguing?
are, what
Can
I
get a
mean
quick
to,
answer to my
mean
question?
is, Brian, the minutes are number 6. It's, right from the beginning, it's wrong.
No, the chairman sets the agenda.
I know.
I,
Oh, where's he going with that?
I'm not,
So if we're gonna do it, if we're gonna do away with it, let's do away with it. We'll just,
I guess I'll have to refresh myself. I didn't think there was a particular agenda sequence for the workshop.
Robert's rules.
So.
Oh, I don't know.
All right, so in regards to the,
there is.
Wilford, I'd be happy to talk about that
No big
outside of
thing,
this
we'll
meeting.
talk about it later.
Okay.
It's just that you're not gonna deny it in front of me.
I'm not denying it. I'm saying I don't think it's that important that we should be discussing it for 5 minutes tonight.
Right.
I mean, I
Call
don't,
me up, call me.
okay.
It's just that every time,
Well,
look at the
Wilford,
agenda.
Mr. Hamel, what's the harm? How does it hurt our ability to do work because we didn't do the minutes second? That's why I don't understand. I'm trying to get the key business of the town done, and adopting
It's
the
the way
minutes
it's
is not
supposed
the
to
key
be.
minutes.
I didn't want this to go on for 15 minutes. I'm just questioning. Every
And I've
now then
answered it.
I'll ask you, why are we just postponing this? And now I want an answer.
I've explained it. If it isn't
I don't think it's
satisfactory,
good enough.
apparently not. I'm sorry that's the case.
That's okay.
So, in the question that
Still
Mr.
love you in the morning, Brian.
Well, that's good. We're all tired and frustrated at 10:30.
I'm not.
So the question that Mr. Councilor Pulaski requested was the council like the mission that we were handed tonight to be placed into the resolution?
As opposed to the summation of that.
I would like that in there.
I
Yeah.
think that's fine with me
Like
too.
the whole-
Yes.
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 Yeah.
If we're not gonna act on it tonight, I
Right.
will give you a chance, I'd like to see it in there.
What's that?
No harm.
And I'm going to put that onto the September business meeting,
Whereas the mission.
so we can have it done with for his.
Thank you.
Okay. So, would the council like to act on the minutes and then act on Mr. Winowski's request?
It's not from Mr. Winalski's request, so we can get him out of here.
I don't think he's waiting for us just for that.
I'll make a motion that we do the minutes at our next meeting and move to number 12A.
I'll second it.
All right. Is there any discussion?
No.
All right, please call the roll.
Counselor Pulaski?
Aye.
Counselor Quox?
Aye.
Counselor Hamel?
Aye.
Counselor LeBranch?
Aye.
Counselor Glennon?
Aye.
Counselor Hart.
Aye. Okay, I think the consensus of the council is to skip the committee reports, unless anybody has something urgent they would like to share.
Nope.
Okay. 12A, Mr. Winowski had emailed or called me up and I asked him to send me an email, which he did, so thank you, and that you got a copy of that in advance of this meeting. And he has been requested to be a representative of a municipality to the Commission to Study Secure Landfills, which was a bill passed legislature this year to create this commission. And I believe you were invited because of your significant role in the demolition debris burning efforts and what you learned from that about trash and demolition debris. And this committee's purpose is to evaluate the disposal of dangerous or hazardous waste, including construction and demolition debris. And there's 15 representatives, 15 members, and one of them is a representative of the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and Mr. Winowski's been asked to fill that role. They have an interim report due November 2009, and then a final one November 2011. And they'll meet probably once a month for about 2 hours. I don't see any issue with this. I think it would be good experience and exposure and good contacts with people in legislature and state government. But I didn't want to make that decision without the council having a chance to discuss it. Councilor Quox.
Well,
Okay.
it must be,
So does anybody have any questions, or is everybody okay with?
Yes, I have a question.
Councilor Glennon?
Can we approve this where he is not officially on board yet? Does he need our approval?
Well, I guess technically not, but I think he recognizes that this will impact his
Job.
time
All right.
with the town of Newmarket.
Yeah,
So
okay.
he's,
I appreciate the fact that you consider that, yes, absolutely. I didn't know whether you,
I just felt it was important to bring it to you.
oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
As opposed to saying yes and coming here and you guys would, some objecting to it.
Yeah.
The only other question I have is, if you have to do some traveling, like say to other states, other sites, wherever, would the municipal association or would that committee pick up the cost, do you know?
I believe that any traveling costs come from the state.
On the state portion
They
of it?
generally cover those types of things for the members of the committee, pay mileage and things like that. So that wouldn't be a charge to the community.
Okay. How come he's not made to come up to the podium?
Because it's 10:30.
Nobody's watching anyway.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't see any objections, so you can just leave this meeting with the blessing of the council to
Right,
accept that.
yes.
And thank you for bringing it to our attention. Okay, we're not going to approve the non-public minutes either.
Motion to adjourn?
Well, would the council like an update on a matter
Yes.
that would need a non-public that I can update everybody on? It would take, literally, I'm not lying, it's like 3 minutes.
I'll make a motion, we go into non-public?
It's, and the reason to go into non-public is because the matter could potentially affect the reputation of someone other than a member of this board.
91-A.
So
Three,
yeah, second?
Eric, I believe that was Councilor Glendon and seconded by Councilor Pulaski. In case, okay. You're on top of it. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Counselor Pulaski?
Aye.
Counselor Quox?
aye.
Counselor Hamel?
Aye.
Counselor Branch?
Aye.
Counselor Glennon?
Aye.
Counselor Hart?
Aye.
Motion carried.